And I think obviously you don't need me to tell you that playing on a pad feels different than playing on a drum, but I think it's a little more extreme than we give it credit for.
The altered state of one's hands or chops after transitioning from a synthetic playing surface to an actual drum, usually in a marching circumstance.
Which really just means that when you switch from playing on a drum pad to an actual drum, your hands are going to look and feel kind of funny. So whereas when you're playing on the pad, you probably look like a Blue Devil, when you switch to a drum, you might look more like Shaq. So drum heads work on the principle of outwards tension. So you put the drum head over the drum itself, and the rim and the rods pull it down, and then as it stretches over the shell, the head pulls itself out in every direction. Now I'm willing to bet a majority of us do most of our practicing or playing in general on a drum pad rather than an actual drum, just because of volume reasons, and they're a lot cheaper and easier to find. And the way a drum pad rebounds the stick in order to try to mimic the feeling of a drum is basically just a thin layer of rubber on top of a bass. And that's all it is. So if you had to take anything away from my little physics lesson here, it's that a marching snare drum will always give you more rebound than a marching snare drum pad. So the difference between these surfaces boils down to pretty much any rudiment that relies on rebound to have fluidity and consistency when you play them. So probably the main rudiments you want to worry about are buzzes, diddles, and single stroke rolls. Because when you increase the rebound of the surface you're playing on, controlling the stick's just going to get harder and harder. So going against popular belief, I'd say try to avoid any sort of chop-out strategy you may come across. So a lot of people really seem into drumming on pillows or using extra weighted sticks because they think it'll make their hands play louder or faster, but all these are going to do is make the real deal, playing on an actual drum, feel a lot more foreign. So what you want is actually more rebound, not less. So try to find lighter sticks of the same size and shape. Maybe try to find the pad with the most possible rebound, like gum rubber. Another tactic for more effective practicing on a practice pad would be focusing on making sounds with the pad and not so much focusing on the feeling. So I asked my good friend Benji on his thoughts of the subject, and this is what he had to say.
When I think about the idea of pad hands, I think of a few different things, but all of them are in some way, shape, or form an inconsistency between the way you play on a pad and the way you play on a drum. So I do think pads offer a lot of good opportunities, and that obviously you can play somewhat quietly. You can practice anywhere, right? But you can't necessarily learn those feelings. You can learn what good sounds are. So I think if you can learn to train yourself on a pad to make good sounds, I think you can train yourself to recreate those good sounds even on a slightly different feeling surface, if that makes sense. So pad or drum, whatever it is, as long as you have those sounds and know how to create those sounds and can identify those sounds when they're happening, I feel like that's really the utility of the pad.
So think about rhythms, dynamics, and grace notes because those will transfer over to actual drums more easily and just happen to be based off of sound instead of feeling. So really all you need to remember from this is that rebound is really important, and practicing with no rebound won't make you so much better. When you're playing on a pad, be thinking about sound instead of feeling. And most importantly, don't be afraid to practice anyway, even if you don't have the most ideal setup. I guarantee the more playing you do, the better you'll get in any circumstance.